Alrighty, hello Cutley Clem, hello TTA, words, hello everyone. Wow, gosh, um, I'm a bit sleepy tonight. I sort of feel my brain going at like 60%. I've got tea, I've got good company, and we're gonna make this work. Welcome to another stream of Lyrebird Edits. Welcome. Good evening, TTLAC, and Cuddly Clementine. See, we got there. It just took me a long time, and a lot of willpower, but I can read. I can do this. I hope the two of you have been well. I haven't seen that one before. What's that? 2DLACC. Alright, let me go into the Admiral Smart. Cool. I spent a lot of time sitting down today. Maybe that's why I'm a bit sort of all over the place with the brain. We had this protein digestion protocol where we get our protein extracts and we stick them into these little filters, and we use a centrifuge to spin all the liquid around, and the liquid will flow past the filter membranes, but all the proteins will, by virtue of a kilodalton, 10 kilodalton sieve, it's a sieve, not a sleeve. The proteins have got trapped in, you condense the proteins down. Long story short, it's just a lot of steps where I have to like put a thing into a big tub and press start and come back in half an hour. So I was doing a lot of sitting today, which is okay. I mean, there are worse things you can do. Oh, interesting. So there's like an additional palette of emotes that you can access. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was wondering why the minion one. Like, I didn't think that was a standard one. At least it damn well shouldn't be a standard one. But yeah, I was wondering how it was able to come up. Part of me thinks as well that like the restream also has something to do with it. Or maybe it's a plugin that I have associated with my channel, which is called Better Plays TV. In other news, yeah, I did Panda from Mars. I just started, so welcome to the stream, welcome. We're still in the warm-up phase where I have to waffle for like 5 minutes to get my brain working. I'm gonna waffle a little tonight. I feel as though I need to warm up. No, don't worry, it's not gonna be too much waffle. I watched my nephew play Fortnite last night. That was my first exposure to Fortnite. I've seen PlayerUnknown before, but I mean, do people still play that? Probably. But Fortnite seems to be all the rage. He was good. I was really impressed with his aiming abilities using a PlayStation 4 controller. So yeah, so proud of him. And that's the one TTLACC. It's BTTV, which I've always had associated with the channel. Still don't really know what it does, or whether I've used it to any good effect. Yeah, I'm not sure. Also, apologies if the frames are dropping. Let me know how the quality of the stream goes, and I will do my best to. I'm not sure. Just pray to the data stream gods. No, it's too much light on my face. Yeah, it's about the right amount. That light up there is gonna get annoying, so I'm gonna go turn it off. One sec. Okay, well, I started off on a mission to turn off lights, and I ended up turning another one on, so yay. Yeah, can you explain what this is? What the ninja thing is? Because my nephew was saying that like heaps of people are sticking these keywords um into the titles of their Twitch broadcasts and just sort of like getting a wash of new people coming in. And it has to do with this. I'm gonna guess from what TTLSCC said and Smooth Dancers is that it's another streamer. Um, which would make sense given that like people are putting Ninja in their own titles just to funnel the views in. Ah, yeah, right. Yeah, I have heard of the. I didn't realize it was Ninja, but I have heard of this one streamer who has like all the. I'm sure there are many streamers like that, but there's one in particular associated with Fortnite. Like, didn't Drake? Fire Drake? Drake? Um, yeah, is that the one who played with Drake? Wow. What a crazy world we live in. Hmm. That's pretty cool, though. Right. That's how I heard about it. Drake was 6 COD. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Hmm. I gotta admit, Fortnite actually looks quite fun. I haven't got a PlayStation. I could play it on PC, but um, with all that lovely free time I don't have. Um, but yeah, I'll admit it looks like a fun game. The player unknown's shrinking circle style of gameplay is really exciting. I think it's a fresh way to sort of deal with a battle royale. It just looks like fun. Like I was watching my nephew play it, and he was building buildings on the fly and having a great time. Really nice time. Exactly, yeah. Because I saw like a headline of a news article. I have no idea how accurate this was, but like some university was offering Fortnite players scholarships to do something. I don't know. You know, and back when I was a kid, mum and dad used to tell me to stop playing those games. Um, yeah, and now we live in a world where, you know, people can earn money by playing video games. Weird. Hmm. But cool. But weird. But cool. Alrighty, well, I feel sufficiently warmed up in the head. So why don't we dive into tonight's edit? Unless of course you have any specific news or anything you'd like to spam into my chat box that you feel needs my undivided attention right now. You can just spam anytime. I'm always here for you guys. Whenever you feel like you just need to copy paste something into my chat box, I'm always there for you. Always. Damn, a million each. Isn't that incredible? A million each for winning. I guess that's why they really do call it, you know, esports. Because the prize pool for regular sports is crazy. But yeah. Yeah, I just finished work. Yes. Fantastic. No OS frog for you, TTLACC. It doesn't work in my box, apparently. Nice try. Oh. Which is also OS frog. Huh. Interesting. So you can't type in... Ah, you know why? You forgot the capital F for frog. Coolies. Alright, so tonight's story is by pianoz4life. And this is another destructive readers story. If you haven't figured out the pattern, I usually lurk destructive readers for my stories, which is good because there's a lot of volume of stories that come through destructive readers, and I think they tend to be a little more polished than some of the writing prompts. Usually writing prompts are off the cuff, whereas if you're on destructive readers, people have already given it a real chop and a real well, they've given it a draft and hopefully a look through before they posted it up. So this is a story by pianoz4life. It's called Willa's Blessing, and we've got a prologue. Now this is a sci-fi fantasy story that it could also be pianoz4life. This is true. Yes, stream is lagging. That's not good. Sorry, TTLACC. Why is it lagging? It shouldn't be. Gonna move the phone over there. Let's see if that improves the signal. Oh, it did. Okay, cool. Let me know if it lags again, and I'll wave my hands around and maybe something can happen. Yeah, pianoz4life is also interesting. Let me know how it is, guys. It should be better now, hopefully. If not, hit F5. Just refresh the browser, and while you're refreshing that browser, subscribe to my Reddit, Patreon, Insta Twitter. In all seriousness, I have a Discord. I'm sure like everyone here in my chat box is currently on the Discord channel, but if you're lurking and you would like to join my Discord channel, please join my Discord channel. You can find the link on my Twitch homepage, and you can scream at me behind the scenes, and I will chat back at you pleasantly. So, first order of business, we're gonna paste a link into the destructive readers page where the story lives. I'm also going to paste it here. There you go. So you can pop on and have a look at the original. This isn't the original. This is a copy that I made into a new Google Docs, and I will share with pianoz4life, or pianoz. Yes, and I like to do that so I can keep my thoughts separate from other editors' thoughts or other commenters. Yep. Okay, and let me do some very exciting housekeeping stuff like line spacing and everything. You know, I realized that I talk quite sarcastically a lot about things like Patreon and social media and stuff. It's really all in jest, though. I have nothing against those platforms or the people who decide that they want to use them, or because I think it can be really interesting and supportive measure for fans to interact with artists and vice versa. Yeah, so there's nothing inherently wrong with them. I'm just always a bit sort of put on edge, I guess, by like the over enthusiastic spruiking of it. I don't know, like I've never found a way to market myself that feels natural and not sort of markety, and I kind of project that onto everyone else. So my apologies. It's a personal flaw of mine. But yeah, so whenever you see me making fun of Patreon, it's really not serious. It kind of is serious. Not really serious. Okay, that was good. So we've got 2.4k words to work with, and yeah. Let me change the font too, just before I default Calibri. Yes, nothing quite says tasteful writing like default Calibri. It was an interesting font choice, wasn't it? Well, actually, what was that font? Playfair D Splay. I've never seen this font before, and I don't care for it. I care for you, Calibri. No, don't suggest it, Lyrebird. Edit it. There we go. Good. Yeah. Oh, shush, you Clem, you naysayer of Calibri. Oh wait, no, you quite like Calibri, don't you? I'm very defensive about Calibri. I like it. Used to be Times New Roman. That was like childhood font. Microsoft Word 97 to 2003. That was Times New Roman. Then Calibri came in 07. I didn't like it at first, and now I can't look at anything else. Isn't that weird? What we're used to. I mean, like, what fonts do you guys like? Is there just one font that you're like, yes, Papyrus? You know, I can't get through the day without looking at Papyrus. Papyrus isn't here. Oh, what a shame. Oh, of course, because it's Google Docs. That's why. Yes, I will. Thank you for the suggestion. Because it is a little small, isn't it? And I usually... That's better, I think, isn't it? Good. And my stream quality is nice and stable. So, without further ado, let's jump into the stream. I've waffled enough. I feel as though I'm capable. Clippers Bay. Good, that's right, yeah. That is the correct opinion to have. This is also the correct opinion to have, Panda from us. PT Seraph, interesting. Hey, nice. Is this okay? Let me know if you want to go to 150, but I think 150 is a bit too much. Let me know. Good. I'm not familiar with PT Seraph. Damn, not here. Permanent marker though. Oh, that is stylish. Okay, without further ado, let's jump in. So I'll read a little chunk and then we'll go back and have a play with it. Emma ran her finger over the single pearly bead of a necklace as her husband paced by the door. It was smooth and well worn, with gold bracing securing it to a thin silver chain. The colours inside swirled with the movement of her fingers, twisting in intricate milky patterns with the rare flash of iridescent colour. The sound of horses' hooves slowly built, clopping to a steady rhythm like the ticking of a clock which was rapidly running out of time. David turned to face her, but she couldn't bring herself to meet his eyes. If she did, she would be admitting, and she didn't have the strength for that. So she sat motionless. She sat there motionless, halfway up the stairs, a vacant expression on her face as she looked down at the fraying entryway rug. She had bought that rug 7 years ago when they first moved out to Alessa, when they were still young and life was still warm with the light of youth. It had been a vibrant red then, with frilled edges and an intricate pattern of braided flower stems, which was popular in the old world. Since then it had seen countless muddy feet. Sorry, I'm gonna highlight this so I remember it. Paws, boots, and even some hands. She had mended it, and it had torn, and she had mended it again. It had a character now, one that spoke of a hard life out on the western wilds, a life with hunger, heartache, and the pain of remembering. Emma, David said. His tone was soft, but Emma cringed at the sound of despite. He took a step forward, and in her mind, Emma begged him to go back. Just stay by the door, and maybe it could all stay the same. Maybe time could freeze right at that moment, and the horses could never come. They would go somewhere new. They could ride the train south until no one knew their names, somewhere that Alden could grow up easy, and they could live their lives in peace. Oh, what you would give for that peace. David repeated her name in a halting tone. He was standing in front of her now, and he put his hand on her cheek. She was shaking. A stifled sob broke free from her throat, and tears began to run down her face as she clenched her jaw as hard as she could. David leaned down and kissed her forehead. Please, God, don't take this. Don't take him, she silently prayed, though to whom she did not know. Let's little more. And she deserved at least something, she thought. Some tiny amount of happiness that was hers to keep. Hers to keep? She had been lost for so very long. When he found her, she was a soulless husk, empty and broken. He had saved her, healed her, and she had loved him deeply for it. She loved him with the terrible fierceness of one who owes an unpayable debt. Memories get old, I can meet them myself. Good, okay, good. Let's stop here, which is the first 300 words? No, 500. I was off. Okay, let's have a think. 150. Sorry guys, I didn't see that. 150. Sorry Clem, sorry Panda. But at least you got to listen to my lovely voice. Yeah? You'll be able to see it now anyway. And that should tide us over. Okay. Also, good to know you're watching on mobile. In my analytics page, it says like a couple of people watch on my mobile, on their mobiles, and I was wondering who they were, what stories they have, what lives have they lived, who are those mobile watchers? So, when you start off a story like this, you have an establishing scene that puts the characters in their place, and introduces a couple of pretty crucial elements. So, you want, in addition to your characters and some sort of setting, an object that may or may not be important, like this one here, the pearl. Now, if you start your story like this with all those elements mixed together, the reader is going to have that in their head as a good starting point, and I think it's nice to start that way. I don't know if the pearl makes a difference later on. Because it's a prologue, it may have significance later in the story. If so, I'd like to see the pearl repeated throughout. You don't want to have it as like a one-line throwaway. You want those sorts of details to be prominent and prominently featured. So I don't know whether or not the pearl is just right to include here. Secondly, there are horses coming. Good. Now, this is quite a slow paragraph. It kind of drops us in and reframes our understanding of his story through Emma, close, started with an E. In some ways, the story I feel should start here, but I think that there's a reason that we're starting with the horses and people waiting. So let's just go through and do a bit of a line edit, and then we can start to see how the pieces fall together. Thank you, Pandas from Mars. Thank you, Pandas. Yeah, that's that one there. Hmm. I think that's more that I don't do that in regular conversation. I think it's more like um middle of a sentence question marks, like why is that there? That's when the head tilt starts. Emma ran her finger over the single pearly bead of her necklace as her husband paced by the door. So pearly is an odd word because it sounds like it's an adverb. Um, it has that kind of weight to it. I don't know, but I know that it's an adjective. So noise outside. Emma ran her finger over a single pearly bead of her necklace. Just give me one sec to read. Sorry, just give me one sec to have another read of this. Okay, so I had a little think about. Good, just let me know if the mic's too quiet now. I was having a little think of there about the structure of his opener and why it was sort of clashing in my head a little bit. Then I realised that it was 4 paragraphs mushed together. What you can do is bring these ideas into one and then carry forward here. Now, Emma ran her finger over the single pearly bead of a necklace as her husband paced by the door. Fine. It was smooth and well worn. Now, grammatically speaking, this is correct because we've got the single pearly bead being the primary object of this opening sentence. The reason why it, at least for me as a reader, it feels like I'm stumbling when I read this sentence here is because the first sentence has a second part to it. As her husband paced by the door, it was smooth and well worn. Now, if I'm reading that, for me it reads like the door is smooth and worn, but grammatically speaking, that's not correct. It's the initial impression is right. The pearly necklace is smooth and well worn. You can clear up this confusion, and I don't know if this is a widespread thing or if it's just me in my personal taste, but I bet it's the husband. The husband was smooth and well worn. Well, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. I mean, the husband could be smooth and well worn. That's quite possible. Let's rephrase the start of a sentence to make it a bit more fluid. I'm just trying something here. Okay, so I've kind of butchered this first paragraph here. What I've done with it is, now it's a little redundant. Beginning your sentences with declarative statements like, it was smooth and well worn, it was this, it was that, the colours inside did this, the colours did that, it was secured by a gold brace. They're very descriptive. While they're quite well constructed as descriptive elements, it doesn't feel like I'm really reading a story. It feels like someone's just written down a description of a person for me. Now that prevents you from, as a reader, really stepping foot into the open door of the story. If you imagine that your opening lines have to serve as like the entranceway between the outside world and the interior world of this story, you have to lead with something that's a bit stronger rather than just, here's a character, here's a pearl necklace, and here's what it looks like. You have to sort of push a bit of emotion into it, which is why I'm throwing this in there. In the low light of morning, the pearl whispered to her, I don't don't care if that's the case or not. This is purely a placeholder element. The colors inside swirled with the movement of her fingers. As Emma moved her fingers around the orb, the color inside spoke to her. Something like that. Something a bit more sort of action-fronted, so to speak. This is a really nice sentence here. In fact, it's one of the nicest things I've read in the opener. And I want to keep it, especially because there's a bit of redundant detail. Like, this and this are kind of redundant, which is my fault as an editor going in. Hey Liberta114, good to see you again. A fine male specimen. Yeah, I didn't want to give a ghostly impression of the pearl. Maybe there's a ghost in the pearl? Who knows? Emma ran her finger over the single pearly bead of a necklace as asked and paced by the door. It's a very serviceable entry into the world. It's fine. How you doing, Liberta114? How's your week been? It has been a week, hasn't it? Because I didn't do a stream on Sunday. In the low light of morning, the pearl whispered to her. So I'll make a note about these. So what I've so this is a note to pianoz4life. What I've written here is all placeholder detail. Why is it just in? No, I don't want in. I want the whole thing. Thank you very much. Comment. Thank you. It's placeholder detail, and you're more than welcome to discard it all. But the point, what I really want to convey here, however, is a sense that the opening scene needs to... I am good, thank you, Liberta. And good to hear that your week was good. Tonight I'm a little tired, a little sort of fuzzy up here, but we're getting there. Yeah, I think that's just because I sat down all day at the labs. Lots of sitting, lots of centrifuging. What I really want to get a sense forward here is this idea that the opening scene needs to allow the reader to step into the world of the story. And to do that effectively, I think it needs... the writing needs to have a little more emotion to it beyond a list of descriptors. The pearl is, I think, an important detail for later on, but you can make the story, the opener especially, stronger by adding some emotional spark to the descriptions. So instead of describing it as a gold rimmed pearl on a silver chain, you instead say, like, in the low light of morning the pearl whispered to her. The orb whispered to her, or something like that. And then you get rid of this. Like that. The colours inside swirled with the movement of her fingers, twisting in intricate milky patterns with the rare flash of iridescence. So you can say iridescence instead of iridescent colour. That's redundant. That's like saying, musical music. It's not as redundant as that, but iridescence can only be color or light. So or you could have an iridescent feeling, I suppose. But if you say iridescent color, it's like, yeah, that's the. So you just say iridescence and cut out the color. Wait, cushy boy? What's this about cushy boys? I'm lost. This is like the golden eye riddle. You sit on it, but you can't take it with you. What on earth? What on earth are you guys talking about? What's this? What's this? I'm so confused. What's a cushy boy? Do you mean Oh yeah, like the note. Yeah, it does. Um, I think it's fine because there's quite a bit to talk about here in this style of opener. I'm behind. Is this what it feels like to be old? When the memes are just they're too thick and too fast, and I'm like, wait, we're still. What about Rage comics? They're still current, right? And it's like, no, Dad, stop it with your old uninteresting memes. Um, there you go, there you go. I wish I had a cushy thing to sit on. Um, just my chair has a bit of padding, but yeah, I should buy a cushy boy. Well, I guess. Yeah, I feel like all my brain juice is in my butt tonight. I don't know. You'd be surprised, pandas from Mars, where particular people, scientists are quirky. We do like a good meme. Let's put it that way. I got up on 25. Nice. Yes. I've got the veil of youth over my face. I won't tell you how old I am then. Just pretend I'm under 25. Because I am. Because that's what we're gonna say from now on. Blood stuck in time. So yeah, so the point I wanted to get across here just before I go on, just really hone it home, is that in its current state, it's Emma's here, there's a pearl around a necklace, isn't the pearl beautiful? Fine way to start a story, but you need to write it in such a way that your reader really feels it rather than just like, here's Emma, here's a pearl. Now, and also you can get rid of some of the redundant, like if this sentence here is functional, like, yeah, it's gold with silver chain, but you can get rid of that and just say the colors are nice. Like, lead with a really strong image, and this is a very good sentence. This is how I like to write. Or you can put a verb at the front, like, as Emma moved her... sorry, what I'll do is I will... I'll make the first comment there. And this one here, I will also make another comment. What we could say is... It really depends on how you, as a writer, want to take that pianos for life. Putting that as at the start may make it more fluid for you. Keep it in the same paragraph, because I don't feel like we have enough information to break it into its own separate paragraph. This is a good piece of info and it's its own mini scene, but I think we still need to keep it in one paragraph. The sound of horses' hooves built slowly, clopping to a steady rhythm like the ticking of a clock which was steadily running out of time. I'm gonna get rid of slowly and put outside. Now, we lose nothing from getting rid of slowly, we gain an awful lot from putting outside there. This helps us orient where these two characters are in relation to that sound. Clopping to a steady rhythm like a ticking of a clock that was rapidly running out of time. Now you need to use that and not which, because I will show you why. If you use which in this case, you need to put a comma, and if you use that, you don't need a comma. This is only ever important if you deal with statements that have couched information inside them, like the boats which were in the harbour were blue. The boats that are in the harbour are blue. That's a very important which versus that. This is an interchangeable which versus that. You can use either, but you need the grammar. Whew. Go to there if you want to learn more. Santa's got their own memes. We've got inside jokes. Yeah. I think we do. It's usually specific to like instruments or methods of doing things, just personal jokes about the way we handle chemicals, or yeah, it's difficult to explain. So it's really personal jokes, which are memes too, I guess, right? It's even worse pandas from us in terms of my age. I am north of 26. North of 26. David turned to face her, but she couldn't bring herself to meet his eyes. If she did, she would be admitting, and she didn't have the strength for that. I know what's going on here in terms of the subtle implications of what these two actions mean. David turns to her, she turns away, she doesn't want to admit that she was wrong because of the horses, right? This is a bit extra, you don't strictly need it, but bear with me. But you can... This is what's tripping me up. It's the... she would be admitting. I get the sense, I get the gist of what this admission is. And I think you can add another word or two in order to give us more clarity without losing subtlety. E.g., if she did, it would be an admission of... naivety, which I need to spell properly. Like so. Oops. The main reason I'm suggesting this is because while this is nice and concise and subtle, it doesn't have quite enough meat to its bone. It's like a skeleton that's lacking a bit of covering. It's a great core idea. I just think its execution needs to push it a little more. Otherwise, you run the risk of it being a bit too brief. And she didn't have a string for that, is okay. Yeah. I think TTLACC, she's admitting to the fact that I have a feeling the horses are coming to take her away, and David, having known this was going to be the case, turns to look at her, and she's like, I don't want to deal with you being right now. So she sits there motionless instead, halfway up the stairs, a vacant expression on her face. This is okay. A vacant expression on her face. You can make it a bit stronger. This is fine as is, but you could also make it a little stronger by priming us for the micro story you're about to tell, the rug's history. E.g., so she sat there motionless halfway up the stairs. And with her anxiety churning away, her eyes... not curing, churning. Etc, etc. So what I was just suggesting there was making the junction between this description and this micro story a little bit more in lockstep. Right now, the way that it reads is... she sits there motionless up the stairs, she's got a blank expression on her face, she looks at the rug. Hey, by the way, here's a story about the rug. And I get what's going on here. I like writing that takes you a step away from... not too much and not too often, but takes a step away out of the narrative drive back into the past. The trouble is that you have to link them together in a way that feels natural, like water running down a river. This feels a bit like a right-hand turn, so I suggest here to make this whole sentence a bit more amenable to being redirected. And I did that by saying, or suggesting, so she sat there motionless halfway up the stairs, and with anxiety churning away, her eyes fell to the rug. Perhaps this was the one stable thing in her life, hyphen. She brought it 7 years ago, blah blah blah. When they first moved out to Alessa, when they were still young and life was still warm with the light of youth. There's a lot of repetition of still, but I think it works. It had been a vibrant red then, with frilled edges and an intricate pattern of braided flower stems. Now, this is, which was popular in the old world, so I'll make a comment here. You can't quite easily show this detail, but what you can do is make the tell of the detail more appropriate and emotionally effective. How do we do this? like this. Intricate pattern on the braided flower stems, full stop. It had been a vibrant red then, with frilled edges and an intricate pattern of braided flower stems. Full stop. These sorts of designs used to be everywhere. Since then, it had seen countless muddy feet, paws, boots, and even some hands. She had mended it, and it had torn, and she had mended it again. I know what you're going for here, but I have trouble reading this out loud, and I think your readers, like my trusty brain's trust here, would read this sentence and probably stumble over this bit here. She had mended it and it had torn. It's very difficult to say out loud, and it's difficult to read because of the it and it had. This is quite an unusual, not incorrect, but very slow, sticky, molasses-like sentence. She had mended it. And it had torn, and she mended it again. It had torn, so she'd mended it. And it tore again, and again. She mended it. How does that look? Over damage the poor dear had seen. It had torn, so she mended it, and it tore again, and again she mended it. Now this again is an equally sticky, slow, molasses-like sentence. Why am I suggesting this over this? Because of the commas. Commas help. They're like breaths. When you see one, you as a reader have to stop. If you don't, you go to jail. You don't collect that $200. You go straight to jail. Like Monopoly. But it forces your reader to stop and slow down. It had torn, so she mended it. And it tore again, and again, she mended it. Now, comma conjunction isn't grammatically right. However, if you do use it in a sentence like this, your reader will ditch the association of commas and conjunctions. It had torn, so she mended it. And it tore again. And again, she mended it. You can also do the same thing with full stops, which might make it a bit cleaner. It had torn, so she mended it. It tore again, and again, she mended it. If you don't put a comma there, it's it tore again and again, a double thing. It tore again, and again, she mended it. He had a character now, one that spoke of a hard life out of the Western wilds. Life with hunger, heartache, and the pain of remembering. That's fine. This is the grammatically correct thing, I think. It had torn again, comma, and again she mended it. If you have a comma there, it's it had torn again, and she'd mended it. Which could also be grammatically correct too, you just need to put another and in there. Either way, point taken. Mended it, torn it, and mended it again is also a really nice, concise way to summarize it. She mended it, torn it, and mended it again. Is an alternate suggestion I'm going to put in here as a comment. However, A viewer also suggested the very clean and concise. This one. She had mended it, torn it, and mended it again. This implies that she tears it, but yeah, that could work. Emma, David said. His tone was soft, but Emma cringed at the sound despite. I don't mind this, at the sound despite. It's an odd way to end a sentence, but I really like it. I don't want to see this again in the story, because I think twice would spoil the effect. But I really like it as like a poof, one-off, bam, that's how you end a sentence. I gotta hand it to you. That's kind of cool. I like that. Cringed is a funny word. It's got a lot of modern emotional baggage. I consider getting rid of it. Winced is a much more emotionally laden word rather than cringed. Personal preference. Cringe is a word laden with a lot of modern Wince, however, has a more emotional undertow. I think it works better. But it's personal preference. Took a step forward. And in her mind, Emma begged him to go back. You need a comma here, otherwise it doesn't work. Well, rip, I use cringe. Oh, don't worry, yeah. Don't worry, code. It's all context specific too. Like, if you're writing a story... When I use cringe is maybe a decent yard marker. I'd use cringe if something visceral happens, like somebody steps on a nail. Ooh, like that kind of... It's a wince, but it's a cringe because it's much more crippling. I think just be careful with it. Just make sure that you're using it in a context that demands a cringe rather than a wince. Or ooh. Yeah. Just stay by the door and maybe it could all stay the same. Maybe time could freeze right at that moment and the horses... Replace the could with the would to make it more definite. They would go somewhere new. A could is fine there. Ravi trained himself until no one knew their names, somewhere that Alden could grow up easy and they could live their lives in peace. Oh, what she would give for that peace. Nice. This is a good paragraph here. Check out the repetition of maybe, maybe. I love doing this myself for my own writing. Not strictly maybe, but you repeat a conjunctive word in the last sentence and you use it for the start of the next one. It has a beautiful kind of flow to it. Like, this is how you write a paragraph that just demands to be read in a fluid way. Just stay by the door and maybe it could all stay the same. Maybe time could... Like, there's a full stop there and you're refreshed from seeing it, but the sentence just plows forward. This is excellent. Excellent writing. Excellent job. Love the work. Love the... Makes the sentences a joy to read. Dab! No. I know what you mean, Liberta114, and I think it's especially egregious when you're writing a historical fiction or high fantasy, anything that doesn't have a modern flavor to it, yet it has modern terms. I mean, you shouldn't do that because it's anachronistic. But I'm also thinking about, like, you don't want to make your speech too memey, either in character dialogue or in description. So even if you're trying to emulate a specific time period, case in point, Life is Strange, the video game, which is set in 2014-15, so there are lots of very 2014-15 specific meme speak, like hella, and just some of the memes that are referenced in-game. Even then it doesn't feel good. It still feels artificial. It's a really difficult line to balance modern lexicon, like very modern lexicon, with an authentic description of what people are like. Hmm. No memes nulls. No. Absolutely not. I think you can. There is a time and a place for a meme. Um. Oh. Ooh. Ooh. Other case in point. Black Panther. The what are those scene? Now, I felt bad watching that. I didn't like that. Um. Someone explained afterwards that Black Panther is set in a time period when what are those was like hot. It was mwah, it's the freshest thing, if such a time ever existed. And still, even then, it doesn't feel like it's appropriate. It still doesn't feel like it's appropriate to reference. Look, it's 2000 and X kind of stuff. It needs to feel substantial and I don't know. It rubbed me up the wrong way, and I can't figure out why. I'm gonna chalk it down to personal preference. I think there is a way to do this, but it's very touch and go, and it's very personally based. Look, you do it, half your readers are gonna like it, half aren't. Half are gonna say you change it, half will laugh with you. You can't win. Just do what you want when it comes to this. Bay Area slang. uh. Bay Area. It's really good. It's really bad, but it's really good. Oh, I've got little tears in my eyes. I don't know why I find that so funny. Yeah, like there you go. Some memes just really tickle people's fancies, and other times it won't. So be careful with memes. It's a tremendous power you have, but you must use it wisely. And I can't. There's nothing rational about my reaction. I saw it. I liked it, and I went with it. Um. But if I was editing your story and I saw it there, what would flip me into hating it would probably be the context. Like, if you had characters that were just talking to each other, meme, Bay Area stuff, I'd probably be like, okay, dial the memes down from 11 to 3. You want the memes on the 3, not the 11. Don't dial the memes up. Don't dial the memes up. They've repeated her name in a halting tone. Now, Emma. Dave repeated her name in a halting tone. He was standing in front of her now, and he put his hand on her cheek. She was shaking. I would flip this on its head. I would... Dab. Yep. So Emma found herself shaking, tears at the edges of her eyes. Looming. Everybody dab. Nah, it doesn't work. So, just experimenting there with something. He was standing in front of her now, and he put his hand on her cheek. The beauty about doing what I just suggested, visual suggestions, of course, that's my standard disclaimer. Nothing is set in concrete. Nothing is set in concrete. They're all just suggestions from a very cogent editor who is totally not stumbling over words. What I did here was I took the inflection of the opener around and I made sure that we had a transition out of this into the new paragraph where Emma finds herself shaking, tears at the edge of her eyes. She looked up to find David looming over her, which now we can then omit this information. He was standing in front of her. We can chop it out because this detail should always be kind of implied by other detail. You don't want to declare what people are doing physically. Emma, like in this sentence here, because she looked up to find David looming over her, he's already in front of her, and this is a much more effective image. This is a descriptive image that doesn't have any weight behind it. He put his hand on her cheek. Now you can definitely spice this up into a show, rather than a tell. So for example, e.g., He held out a chalky hand and brushed against her warmth, brushed against her cheek. Or with a hand mired in sweat, he something that's a bit more sort of, it's not really a show, it's just, you can show extra detail rather than just saying, he put his hand on her cheek. Fine, it's minimalistic, it is what it is, and I don't feel as though that it is the strongest it could be, so you can really make it shine. Unless you want to go for the minimalism, if you want to keep that tone going through, fine. Up to you. Unless you want to keep the minimalism going, then it suits. Up to you. She was shaking, get rid of that. A stifled sob broke free from her throat, and tears began to run down her face as she clenched her jaw as hard as she could. Three things happen here. Throat, tears, jaw. A stifled sob broke free. Emma's heart crumbled, and a stifled sob broke free. You don't need to say from her throat. You can just say, and a stifled sob broke free, full stop. Now, Tears began to run down her face. Get rid of begun to. Tears ran down her face. Or cut her face up. Cut rivers down her face. Whatever, like... There's so many ways you can describe crying. Or you can just keep it simple. As she clenched her door as hard as she could, David leaned down and kissed her forehead. Please, God, don't take this. Don't take him. This needs to be a bit more general. Please, God, don't take. This being the concept of their cozy life together. But I don't think it works as an Look, I'll allow it. I think I understand what it means. Don't take him. She silently prayed. Prayers are usually, well, if it's internal monologue, it is silent already, so you don't need to declare it as silent. Though to whom she did not know. This should be on the same paragraph. This shouldn't be its own idea. Hadn't she deserve at least something? You can get rid of that. Some tiny amount of happiness that was hers to keep. Question mark. Good. She had been lost for so very long. When he found her, she was a soulless husk, empty and broken. He had saved her, healed her, and she had loved him deeply for it. She loved him with a terrible fierceness of one who owes an unpayable debt. I'm gonna get rid of my suggestion to delete the paragraph. No, it's fine, as a separate paragraph. Oh, Clem, you're on fire tonight. That's awful. Dear Lord. Hello, Fictitious1267. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to Lyrebird Edits. We are editing Willa's Blessing. It's a prologue written by pianoz4life. Now, this is a story I got from the Destructive Readers subreddit over on Reddit. And, with permission of course, I asked pianoz4life if they'd be willing to share the story. They said yes, so here we are. And we do line edits, developmental edits, all sorts of edits on Lyrebird Edits. Usually I go through line by line, pick out things that I think could be a little stronger, work on grammatical elements, and other times I'll talk about the ideas behind the story, how they're all fitting together. We sort of just take it as we come. So yes, welcome. Hope you enjoy your stay. I'm gonna go grab a drink. I'll be back in a sec. Just a sec, like 30. Wait, that's plural, so 30 seconds, not a sec. 30 seconds. Okay. Well, I hope you're timing me. Don't want to be giving you the wrong impression when I say 30 seconds, but I end up taking 28. We can't have that. We can't have that kind of sloppiness. A kind of under-reporting of time expectations. Not very good of me. Anyway, so, I think we should read through a little more now. Probably go through another 500, just to get a feel of what comes next. So far we've got A man and a woman deeply in love. The man saved the woman's life somehow using some sort of, I'm going to assume, magic, because this is a science fiction slash fantasy story. And someone's going to come take David away. For what reason we do not know, and for what intent we do not know. So, I guess we'll have to see, won't we? Oh, cool, fictitious. Sorry if I just gave you that spiel when you've been here before. Yeah, I tend just to be really bad with names and faces, mainly names because we haven't got faces here. But yeah, good. Thanks for saying so. I like to think that I think part of the appeal of Lyrebird edits, and one of the reasons I really enjoy doing it, is because it's not only just like a one-on-one author-editor thing. You know, other people can come in, they can give their own 2 cents about what's going on, and the input's always really good, I find. In no small part just because of the fact that we've got some really interesting and well-focused people here to give their input. I think that's what makes it really enjoyable. It's just having that sort of communal sense that everyone's just here to learn and to help each other out. That's really nice, and I value that very deeply. Hmm. Yeah, so again, apologize just for sort of dumping that introduction on you. Anyway, so hadn't she deserved at least something? She's got an unpayable debt. Even when the memories slowly returned as they always did, he was there. He was a shelter against the weathering of guilt and shame. He would hold her as the sound of thunder echoed across the earth in the great storms and let her cry until it had passed. And it was only him and her and Alden sleeping peacefully in ozone-heavy air. Oh, wow. Ultra Instinct Goku, hello from YouTube. That's a bit of a rare sight. I don't get many people coming through YouTube, but still, hello, welcome to the stream. We're editing a story called Willa's Blessing by pianoz4life, which is a story on the Destructive Readers subreddit. I asked the author if they'd be willing to have me go through their work over Twitch, and they said yes. So here we are. And yeah, that's what we usually do here on Lyrebird Edits. We go through and edit. So you caught us at about, let's see, about a page and a half in. We're dealing with a man and a woman who are, they're a couple, they're in love. I think they have a son or daughter. It's Alden, I'm gonna guess that's a son. And they are facing a tricky situation. The husband's going to be taken away by some mysterious people. We're not quite sure who yet. And Emma is distraught because she is not only in love with this man who's called David, but she has her life indebted to him. So we're going to figure out why, how that could be the case, and who these people are. I'm starting to feel like we need to know a bit more about who's coming for David. So I'm going to read through a little more. And then we'll go back and start chatting about it. Even when the memories slowly returned as they always did, he was there. Oh, we've done that. Emma, David said in a pleading tone, get Alden. I can meet them myself. He was watching them from the top of the stairs. A small boy of 8, confused and scared. He had come out of his room and the sound of the horses, but had stopped when he saw his parents. He knew something was very wrong, but he did not know what. It was the fact that scared... it was that fact that scared him the most. His father looked up at him, and he hid behind the wooden banister post. Come on, David said, who helped Emma to her feet. She wanted to desperately see his face. She wanted to desperately see his face. She wanted it more than anything in the world, but those eyes, to look into his eyes and admit what was happening, to know the truth. That would undo her. So she turned and made her way up the steps without ever looking back. Hmm. She wanted desperately to see his face. She wanted it more than anything in the world. She's already seeing his face though, so I'm gonna make a little color there and come back to it later. It's an interesting story. Ultra Instinct. It's got like a little element of the Old West in there. I sort of get the feeling that this is like a, how to describe it? Not quite like a Wild West setting. The thing that I'm using there is this thing. Um, the intricate patterns on the rug that they have in their home, plus the fact that there are horses and carriages. So rugs, horses, carriages, it's kind of got that old world vibe to it. I think that's what makes the story unusual and interesting, is that sort of, it's the setting. But it has to combine with the narrative for it to really work. So let's read on. Alden flinched as Emma reached the top floor and held out her hand. Her expression was a terrifying mask of pain, jaw clenched and tears running down red cheeks. She wiped her eyes and then reached forward and took the child's hand, leading him back to his bedroom. "What's happening?" Alden asked, and she let out a shaking breath. The horses were there now. She could hear the riders hollering and circling the house. A yell rose from amidst the tall pines and echoed out into the night. It sounded hungry. "Nothing. Father just needs to take care of some business. That's all." "Is that Willa? I want to see Willa," Alden protested. "No, it isn't Willa. It's just some people from town," Emma replied. The horses slowly settled and she could hear a jingle of stirrups and latches. The pair entered Alden's room and the boy got into bed, pulling the covers up over him while his mother sat on the side. Her dress made a soft sound as it rubbed against the thick comforter. Do you want to hear the story of how you got your name?" she asked, running her hand through his hair. The boy nodded slowly, confused. She told him the story many times before. It was his favourite, and he often asked for it on nights where he had trouble sleeping. She thought it would do well now. A heavy knock on the front door made her flinch, and a new wave of terror burned like coal in her stomach. She clenched her fists. There's a lot of clenching here. Clenching fists, Emma's clenching jaw as well. Just be careful with the repetition. Breathed deeply and then began. "It starts," she said, "it starts a long time ago with a man and his son." Good place to stop. We'll go back and do an edit. No, I wasn't commissioned, Ultra Instinct. I just do this for fun. I go around, I offer my, ooh, hello, all the code on the page. No, I just do this for fun. I go around and offer edits, and when I stream them to Twitch, that's what we do. Yeah, industrial London era setting. I suppose it could be, couldn't it? There's nothing particularly here that has a that means it's like Wild Wild West America. It could be sort of like turn of the century London. In which case, I'm going to suggest that we add something. Out of time. I'm going to put a comment here. One thing to add at the start of a story would be a more grounded description of where we are. One quick and easy way to do this is to have some sort of view out of the window. What's outside? Industrial London, like what Liberta was saying. The Old West, etc. Doesn't have to be particularly long or effusive description, just a flavor spelt O-U-R. That's how I spell flavor. Now, I suggest this here because suggesting to add this here because we don't get much of a sense of story location from these opening 2 to 3 pages. So really all you need to do is just to say like something was happening outside and give us a bit of a vague flavor of where we are. Bloodpunk London. Hey there women, welcome back. Yeah, isn't it interesting? Like, Liberta raises a really, really good point about Emma and David being very specific names for era. I'm gonna add that to this. One viewer who I will credit suggested, sorry, gave the astute observation that names can convey place as well. David and Emma for Liberta conveyed England as a location, so you can confirm this with a description. This description doesn't have to be like London stretched outside for as far as the eye could see. You could do that and that would be fine, but it could also be just in very subtle things about the town, like gas lamps. Like you could do it with an object as well, as much as you could with just like a description that outright tells you. You can be clever about it. Billy. Oh, Billy the name. Yeah, exactly. 100%. Bully was Bully old Australian? Yes. Also old American as well, I think. Yep, there you go, exactly. So Fictitious nails it on the head. Like, cobblestone wheels, perfect. That's exactly what you need. Damn, you guys are on fire with the suggestions. Well done. So it's a really good specific description. I like that. Yep. So just be clever about it. Now we started here. Even when the memories slowly returned as they always did, he was there. He was a shelter against the weathering of guilt and shame. He would hold her as the sound of thunder echoed across the earth in great storms, and let her cry until it had passed. It was only him and her and Alden sleeping peacefully in the ozone-heavy air. This is a bit of an uncomfortable way to open the paragraph. It's a little too abrupt. Coming from the end of the first paragraph, here we've got, he had saved her, healed her, and she had loved him deeply for it. She loved him with the terrible fierceness of one who owes an unpayable debt. I don't know if this is a true statement. Okay, what have I done here? I added a little linker in the last paragraph that made the new paragraph have a bit more of an identity. Indeed, when she thinks back to every memory she considered happy, thought back, keep the tenses constant. Emma finds her thoughts coming back to the solid center. David, he was always there in her head. Same paragraph, he was a shelter against the weathering of guilt and shame. I usually don't like evocative, declarative statements of, you were the antidote to my X and Y. It's a bit too, it doesn't tell you much. No, sorry, what it does tell you, it doesn't really tell you in a way that makes you remember in an impactful manner. He was a shelter against the weathering of guilt and shame is a bedrock statement. I think it's okay to use. He would hold her as a sound of... I personally stay clear of it, but I think it works in this paragraph. He would hold her as the sound of thunder echoed across the earth in the great storms. I'm going to assume this is literal. Because if it's not, then I'm going to assume this is literal. If it's another description of the quality of their love, then I'd consider against it just having come from a similar sentence. Having just come from a similar sentence. One before it. Which is again quite declarative. And let her cry until it had passed and it was only him and her and Alden. Sleeping peacefully in the ozone heavy air, no semicolon. I'm trying to think about whether this is a location specific thing, like if the ozone has a particular kind of flavor or smell or attribution you can pinpoint to a location, maybe. But it's an unusual description too. Oh, sorry, people are talking. Stomach is wheezy of steam fire into the air amongst the company of sounds, some cloven hooves, some wheels on cobblestone. That's nice. That's good. That's very good. I like that. The sound of progress is a very sort of like, I'm a narrator, let me tell you a story, reader, kind of voice. Like it's perfect for the style of story where you have this grand, rather obnoxious narrator. The sound of progress. It's good. You can't use it in every story, but you can use it in some. Ozone because of the lightning, yeah. I don't know. I don't know where the ozone's really coming from. This is tripping me up a bit. I consider... I mean, does... Yeah, I think you're right, fictitious. It's the reaction of lightning being the ozone catalyst. Then would it? It works then, yeah. It's unusual. Let's keep it. Let's keep it. good. Oh, hello, Sekoj. Hello, Sekoj. How are you? Welcome to the stream. O3 plus. That's the ozone. You got it. You've got that chemical reaction. Ozone could do some pretty funky things, actually. Gosh, but I'd have to remember back to my high school earth sciences, nitrogen cycle and ozone cycle, and yeah, my brain doesn't remember stuff from back then so good. That's not true. It remembers plenty of stuff, but just I'm a bit hazy on the atmospheric cycles. Actually, we learned it in uni as well. Hmm. Yeah, it's the time zones can prove a bit tricky, can't they? Yeah. Hey, well, you get to catch me live. Yes. Just the times line up, isn't that nice? Yeah, you can always watch the replays too. On that note, if you don't know, all of the replays from Lyrebird edits right now, from like this point on, actually from a couple of weeks ago, actually, they're being uploaded to YouTube right now. So I'm double streaming, which is why we had a lovely face from YouTube here tonight. Yeah, so once the stream's finished, it'll just be uploaded straight away to YouTube, so you can watch them all there, and that's a much easier way to catch up. Twitch has its like 2.5 week buffer where you can watch replays, so you can watch it here or on YouTube. Up to you, totally fine. You are in control. And the teachers was saying that they personally don't care for the word. Ozone heavy probably should be hyphenated, but let's get a little note going here, where some readers may find this description a little too heavy. It's clever given the context. But the weight of the word may drag down the sentence. Up to you. Have a think about it. My suggestion would be, I mean, personally I'm 50-50. If changed to anything else, but yeah. Okay, here now we have a break in focalization. This is an unusual thing that happens in this story. Right now we are focused pretty much through Emma. We're seeing all the events through Emma's eyes. Or not exactly through Emma's eyes. Imagine that this is a film set. The narrator has been following Emma around with the camera and focusing almost exclusively on her. We turn to David occasionally, but in a literary sense, the camera is allowed to take steps into characters as well and give us explanations and insights into the character's mind in a way that a normal film camera can't do. So, what does that mean? It means that, typically speaking, we can't break it. We can't break focalization of characters. It's the way to do this is to split the scene up into, now this person is talking and now this person is talking and by talking I mean you have the narrator describe things about them and through them. Um, so what's going on here? Why is it? Why did I say it was broken? Um, and because up until this point we've just been having to deal with Emma. David said in a pleading tone, "Get Alden, I can meet them myself." He was watching them from the top of the stairs, a small boy of 8, confused and scared. So he had come out of his room at the sound of the horses, but had stopped when he saw his parents. He knew something was very wrong, but he did not know what. For the first sentence, you can kind of confuse yourself a bit for believing that it's still Emma that we're seeing this scene through. Like, oh, Emma turns and she sees the boy at the top of the stairs. He had come out of his room, okay, we can assume that, at the sound of the horses, okay, but had stopped when he saw his parents. He knew something was very wrong, but he did not know what. Now, at this point, it's a very big stretch for the reader to still believe that this is still Emma's assumptions about Alden. Rather, it's the narrator having come in and broken focus and talking now around Alden. Two solutions. You either stop the scene and write from an 8-year-old child's perspective. You do that, you have to change all sorts of things. You have to change how the language works, how perception works, what the child is seeing, what the child understands. Very complicated. Effective but complicated. We don't want to do that here. We just want to keep it with Emma. You don't want to lurch back and forward between focalization. It's a very rough thing to do to your story without good reason, and there's no good reason to do it here, I think. So let's fix it up. Also, you'll note that every sentence starts with he. I don't know if that's intentional, if it's like, oh, I've got to write like a child now. Which isn't bad, but I think it loses a lot here. So let's rewrite this so that it's not focused through Alden. Oop. Quite a major edit here, and one that I talked about quite a bit at, what time is it? 1 hour and it was about 1 hour 45 minutes. Basically it comes down to a break in localization. Don't be tempted to jump back and forth between characters like like you've done here. Unfortunately, this often breaks the flow of the narrative and ends up making the story feel rocky and unfocused. Stick with the viewpoint of one character and project their feelings via the narrator onto other characters. So instead of telling us that the boy must have heard the horses and come out, you can get Emma to imply that information when she sees him. It's a much better way to keep the... Oops, I also didn't spell focalization properly, I think. No, I did. It's just Australian spelling thing. You could do, yeah. You can replace. I think this is Alden. This is from Alden's perspective. So you can also, yeah. Sorry, you were talking about here, Liberto. You were talking about here. Although I would argue that because we've jumped from Emma up to Alden, we probably have to go back to come on, he said, David said, you can keep either. I'd probably argue that you need to keep David or he here. Sorry, David rather than he, just to differentiate the he and the he, the small boy and the big boy. Good question, Fictitious. Like, how are line breaks used in this regard? Instead of a paragraph break, I get what you're saying. Grammatically speaking, you can do a line break and then do one of those, like you could do a tittle or three asterisks to signify that you have a break in perspective. You need to be careful when you do this. It needs to fit with the story. There needs to be a reason for a break. I argue that there's none. I don't feel that we need this information told from the perspective of a character that we haven't seen before, and at the expense of keeping the action focused around a character that we're familiar with. Reading this originally felt like you were being lurched over here, and you don't want to do that for your reader. Sorry, camera and autofocus. You don't want to do that for your reader. It's a lot of pain for very little gain. There are ways that you can do breaks in perspective and feed them together. I'm experimenting with that right now in a new story, but another news story. There's but you have to be really confident in not breaking your scene apart. Like we were mid-scene and it lurched sideways, so you do have to be careful. So to come back to your original question, does it go back to Emma? I think it does. If it doesn't, wouldn't a line break fix the point of view change? Yeah, but I don't think we need one to begin with. Hmm. I've seen successful short stories with point of view changes. You just need to do it in sensible places after salient features have been established. Or if you want to write a really experimental story, you have consistent, meaningful breaks in point of view. You can do it. You can be really flexible sometimes with point of view changes, but it just needs to make sense and it needs to read intuitively. You as a reader need to understand why you're changing point of view. That's interesting, Dan Whitman. I personally haven't noticed that, but I don't read a lot of online fanfic. Could you expand on that? What do you think is? Do you think it's like a major trend? How often are these points of view changes? Is it like a couple of pages of one character and then we're in the head of another character? What do you think is the current? What's the scene like, so to speak? I'd be interested. The scene of scenes. She wanted to desperately see his face. She wanted it more than anything in the world. But those eyes, to look into his eyes, and admit what was happening, to know the truth that would undo her, so she turned away. The second part of this is good, but I think the first part is a little rocky. She wanted to desperately see his face, doesn't work, because desperately see is a bit clanky. Full stop. She wanted it more than anything in the world is a really nice, simple, clean statement. It's great. She wanted it more than anything. You're waking up in 9 hours, apparently. Thank you. Thank you, Flux. She wanted it more than anything in the world. Ellipses. But look into his eyes is to admit defeat and admit what was happening right now. To know the truth that would undo her, or to know it was truth. Have a think about it if you want to reword this. So she turned and made her way up the steps without ever looking back. Oh. That's interesting that you've seen that trend, Dan Whitman. Are the jumps between characters, are they in the same place moving side by side? Are they in different locations? Is it to move time forward? Like, why do they chop around so much? But I guess that's a fascinating thing. Just why is it happening? I mean, in the story that I'm writing, it's happening because the story is a spill of memories that run together, so when one memory ends, another one will sort of come in and take its place, or different characters will have memories of the same event sort of working through them together, and that's what I was kind of going for, but I wonder why other people are using it so much and why it's prevalent in this kind of fiction. It could simply just because, like, you have two characters, like in slash fiction, you have two characters back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like, Ron does this, Harry does this. I'm gonna just put a Ron and Harry out there. Let me float that idea. Okay, yeah. But this simultaneous. Yep. Look, it can work, but why? You know, why do we need to change perspective? I mean, this is sidetracked now. We're just chatting here in a general discussion sense. What does that bring to the table if you have one scene told from two different perspectives? The only thing that I can think of, off the top of my head, is that when you do that, you can have differing versions of the same event from two very different emotional perspectives. Great way to use that is if one character is enjoying something and one character is hating something, and they're fighting against each other for whose perspective is right. Really, really interesting way to write a story. I suspect that's not happening here. I suspect it's just, you're doing this now. Oh, now you're doing that. Now you're doing it. It'll break the story apart if you do it like that. It's unnecessary and it lurches a bit. Yeah, I wonder, Fictitious. That's a really interesting thought. Maybe, maybe that's what we're used to seeing in TV. However, television's equivalent of this is when you change scene and you have new characters and a new focal point. Stories have this too. Focalization is not all that. It's not all that dissimilar. Um, but usually in a story, you have one main focal point, or you have a narrator who's comfortable being an in-betweener and they juggle different perspectives. A bit like the narrator in Harry Potter, I suppose. It's a little more Harry focused, but sometimes it's very good at balancing a general perspective. Usually fantasy stories will do this. They will balance a perspective between a couple of different characters. Hmm. Van Whitman, I think you've said something very important there. It becomes redundant because the writing becomes it's clunky, and it's clunky because it's not information that feeds well together. It's the same thing twice, and if it's that, don't bother with it. Absolutely not, because your reader will hate you. They will not be. No one's going to sit there and read the same detail twice, right? Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. This is like a sub problem. It's when your focal point is too weak. Um, so what we had in the story here so far was a break in focal point where we had a really strong one, and then all of a sudden a new one came in. What Van Whitman just described here, um, which is like during like a preliminary sex scene, for instance, like you have one character does this and feels this, the other character does that and feels that. Um, that's a weakness in the narrator's focal point. The narrator tries to have two eyes on the event. Don't do that either. That's very very difficult to pull off. Just pick a character and go for it. Or balance them, but don't do a little bit of A and then B and then A and then B. Just do like a circuit. Just wash it together. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just don't double on the detail, as Van Whitman said. Don't be tempted to just do two of everything. Just one. And that's great, Fictitious. Yeah, I think I'd be tempted to do that too. I usually pick one and stick with it. Mm. You can do it the other way. You just have to be consistent too. Ooh. How many words have I done tonight? I feel like I haven't actually edited an awful lot tonight. Apologies if I've been very slow. Only 1,000 words, yikes. Goodness, my apologies, I'm a very slow. Let's try and do a little more then, and I'll call it quits at like 11:30, before my voice gives out. Alden flinched as Emma reached the top floor and held out her hand. Her expression was a terrifying mask of pain, jaw clenched and tears running down red cheeks. I think you can simplify this a bit. Alden flinched as Emma reached the top of the top floor and held out her hand. I'm gonna rework this sentence here. I was having a bit of trouble thinking of how this all worked together. Emma reached down to scoop up Alden, but the child scampered away, a horrified look on his face. Emma felt her heart break. She stopped, she wiped her eyes, she put on a brave face, and then took the child's hand. "It's okay, dear, it's okay," she said, leading him back to his room. So, this all implies this. Alden's afraid of her because of her expression, so you want to make sure that she... the reader understands this, but you don't want to tell them outright. It feels a bit cheap. It feels a bit cheap because we haven't really earned the payoff. We need to understand for ourselves how she is. She put on a brave face and took a child's hand. "It's okay, dude, it's okay." "What's happening?" Alden asked. And she let out a shaking breath. It needs to be a separate sentence. The horses were here now. Gonna get rid of this. The horses had arrived. She could hear the riders. She heard. She could hear as a present tense thing. Or no, it can also be past tense. She heard the riders hollering and circling the house. A yell rose from amidst the tall pines and echoed out into the night. First mention of outside scenery established this earlier on. A yell rose. It sounded hungry. There was hunger in the voice. Deep hunger woven through the call. I think it sounded hungry is okay, actually. Nothing, Val, just needs to take care of some business, that's all. Is that Willa? I want to see Willa, Artem protested. That's fine. No, it isn't Willa, small I. It's just some people from town, comma, Emma replied. The horses slowly settled and she could hear the jingle of stirrups. Convert this to a sound. Like, and she could hear the stirrups jingle, just the horses slowly settled was a bit, ephemeral. The pair entered Alden's room. I think they should already be there at this point. Emma ushered the boy to bed, pulling the covers up over him while she sat on the side. Her dress made a soft sound as it rubbed against the thick comforter. I don't strictly know what a comforter is, but I can imagine. Do you want us to hear the story of how you got named? She asked, running her hands through his hair. The boy nodded, slowly confused. Fine. She told him a second. Ready. But the woman It starts, she said. It starts a long time ago. Man and his son. Good. Now we have a line point of view break. This is a really good, clean, nice way to end. Point of view 1, point of view 2. This is how you do it. Downstairs, David opened the door and faced the 4 armored officers outside. He was wearing his finest suit, sturdy blue, with a long gold tassel running around his right shoulder. He was proud, and his figure august against. Hang on. Is this a word? This is a word I've never seen before. Don't tell me. A new word. Huh. New word. Well, we learn something new every day. I learned that this is more than just a month. Do you guys know how to get that, the timeline of how often a word is used over, like, decade periods? Sometimes when you type words into Google, it shows you how often the word's been used throughout history. Let me know if you know how to do that. Downstairs, David opened the door and faced the 4 armored officers outside. He was wearing his finest suit. He was proud, and his figure against August in the middle, as the middle guard unrolled a long sheet of parchment. I'm not going to read forward, I'm just going to do the edits as I go. Careful not to, dump a whole lot of new detail, about a character that has previously been established. We didn't know he was wearing any of this before. We probably need to know, it says you're a heretic, probably need to know this beforehand, before we get to the scene. That's the black bag thing. He was proud, and his figure august as the middle guard. I'm going to suggest demonstrating this. Demonstrate his pride. Get him to Yeah, don't just say he's proud and he stands tall. Like, get him to like close the door, slowly walk out, and then just wait, as if I'm here. What do you want? That sort of thing. Like, project and show us that scene. Don't just sort of say, "Yep, he's proud." David Fenrock, you've been a bad boy. As the middle guard unrolled a long sheet of parchment, that's fine. Emma heard. Oh, okay. We've got a focalization break here again. Um. Okay, so we're trying to juggle two perspectives here. David and Emma. Right now, we're sort of stuck between the two of them. I suggest sticking with one. But if you want to split the focal attention, you'll need to grease the wheels. How do you do that? It starts, she said, it starts a long time ago with a man and his son. No, I don't actually. I don't suggest splitting the focal attention. I suggest sticking with one. It makes the story cleaner. There's little to gain from a narrator that sweeps back and forward between your characters like a metronome. Short, contained scenes that are told from different people's perspectives that fit together like Lego blocks, back to back, end to end. That's the way you want to do it. My personal recommendation. If you feel as though you can balance it, like you want to do the metronome of focalization, more than welcome to try. Right now I think that it's not really a metronome, it's more like a dial that's doing this. And it breaks the story whenever it happens a little bit. It sort of just makes me go, ooh, okay, now we're here. Especially after we've done a focal break here. And then focal break, nice, and all of a sudden, oh, we're back up with Emma. Try not to do that too much. Nobody expects the editing inquisition. The editors are going to rise up and take over. One day, the man's son became very ill, Emma said. Emma said. So he called in every doctor he could find. They all tried to work their various powers on the boy, but nothing seemed to help. Doctor and powers don't work together unless this is a fantasy setting. So, I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume this is like a fantasy specific thing. If in this story world doctors are magic users, give a more specific, magic specific term. Just even something really basic. Something more appropriate. It was a strange disease, one they'd never seen before, and as time passed it spread. The son grew sicker and sicker. It spread to... or across his body. Did it give him pustules, warts, scars, etc., etc.? Give some detail. It's a story. Give it some detail. The son grew sicker and sicker, and the father grew more and more desperate. There was one thing that could save him, but it was forbidden. It was deep magic. One that could not be controlled. One that could endanger all the world if it was used. When at last the son was on death's door, the father, in his desperation, stole the deep magic and used it to save his son. Hmm. Give a tiny bit more detail. Just about where the magic was stolen from. The people were right to be afraid, however. For once he did. It was loosed upon the world and consumed all that it touched. Emma took a breath and looked out the window as the deep moonless night. At the deep moonless night, where the wraith-like silhouettes of the soldiers danced between the ancient pines. Whoa, okay. Silhouettes of the soldiers. New soldiers? Are they coming to take them away? Or were they there all along in a camp? Just a bit more there, please. The people were about to be afraid, however. For once, he did. It was loosed upon the world and consumed all that it touched. But he fixed it, right? Alden asked. Emma had been quiet for a long moment. Emma remained quiet, stayed quiet for a long moment, and Alden was eager to get to his favorite part of the story. The man drove back the bad magic with his power, right? He used the power of Olden. Emma nodded. Yes. For just when the darkness appeared, poised to consume everything, he found a way to drive it back. He found a miracle. He found the Olden. At this point, you probably want to focalize through David here. Like, so, because we had the focal point break there, maybe consider putting these two paragraphs of David below this scene in the new section demarked by... I think it'll fit better there. One after Emma nods. He found the Olden. Yep. That way you don't have to break back and forward too much. Alrighty, I'm gonna call it quits there tonight, I think. It's a good place to stop. We've done, I think, about 1,500 words is what I'm going to... Word count? 1,600. Good, we're about halfway through. Yeah, apologies if this was a little slow tonight. I think I spoke pretty heavily on a lot of the constructive elements of the story. The way it was put together, I mean. How everything flowed together, and I think I spoke a fair bit on that. So sorry if I waffled on, sorry if I was a bit slow, but hopefully that was useful for you guys watching, and hopefully Pianos4life gets something out of this too. So it's interesting, we've got a fairly well-established scene. I'll talk a bit about the story just before I wrap up. Hang on a second, Fictitious, hang on. Park your horse for a second, we've got a bit more chatting to do. Yes, I like the story too. I think it's got interesting... two established characters, who have this interesting dynamic of a savior and savey relationship. We've got the boy and his role in the family, David confronting the people outside. It's interesting, and I want to know what happens. I want more. I want more detail. I want to know where they are. The setting and the environment needs a little bit of brushing up. I want this to feel like it's a real place, like I'm there with them. On the whole, it's quite fluid in how everything runs together. Really nice. just be careful about the point of view and the focalization. My suggestion is to just pick Emma, stick with her, stick around her, and tell the story through her until we get to the point where David goes outside and really confronts the guards. Try not to lurch back and forward. Keep it smooth. And that's, I think, the biggest thing to fix. And it's quite a major structural element. It's just the case that it needs a bit of tinkering, I guess. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Liberta. Good. Now I'm done. Good. Thanks to everyone who tuned in again. I will finish this story off on Sunday. But yeah, hope you had fun. And don't forget to pop over to my Discord. That way. I think my Discord lives over there. Yeah, the link is on my Twitch homepage. Jump in, feel free to say hi. Yes, you can chat with me outside of stream hours. Good. Alrighty. I hope you have a good Friday, and a good Saturday, and a good Thursday, if it's your Thursday still. Probably is still your Thursday. Mine's nearly over. Yay. Okay, we'll see you Sunday. Yes, very good. Okay, bye-bye.